Tomorrow night, I have a lot of people on Motzei Shabbos I invited.
My goodness.
Yeah, so.
And this cold, horrible weather, not to have electricity.
Well, we have
I
an
think it
inverter.
will come back.
Yeah, it will come back.
Hopefully.
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, today is my father's yahrzeit. So I'm all the learning that I'm doing today is Le'ilu Nishma, his Nishma, so his for his neshama. Um, Officially, this shir is my mother's neshama, it's her shir. But actually, my father is the one who pushed me to do it after my mother died. My father was absolutely insistent that I should do the shir, and when I wasn't interested, he said, at least for Shloshim, and at the end of Shloshim, he said, at least for the year, and it's and I'm still doing it. So it's for my mother, it's for my father, it's for everyone. Um, they, my father should have a lichtike Gan Eden, should be a good advocate for all of us. Um, and yeah, and then on a different note, thank you, Auntie Linky, for doing the poll. Auntie Linky was very determined that we should finish Megilas Esther. So I hope everyone's in agreement that. But when I said no, she organized that I should do it. So we are continuing with Megilas Esther for now. So actually, of all parts of the Torah, I love Megilas Esther. So I'm not sad or sorry. I love doing it, and as I told you right at the beginning, I try myself to learn Megilas Esther every year with a new mefarish, and it really talks to me in so many different levels. So we got up to the end of Perek Gimel, and I hope you enjoyed listening to the Megillah in Shul more this year than usual, at least the first part, as you followed what we had learned. And now we are really going to Fnim Mishur Sajid. We are beginning to learn for next year Purim now. We got up to the end of Perek Gimel. We finished with the words Va'ir Shushan Avaicha, and the city of Shushan was bewildered, and that's where we ended off. I did tell you some things from the ahead, some of the midrashim, but I'll tell them to you now in context as we go along. So Perik Dalet, Pasuk Aleph, begins Umaracha Yada es kol asher naasa, and Mordechai knew everything that had happened. Vayikra Mordechai es begadav. Mordechai tore his clothes. Vayilbash sak va'efer, and he dressed in sackcloth and ashes. Vayetze b'sei cha'ir, and he went out into the middle of the city. Vayizak za'aka gedela umara, and he cried out a big and bitter cry. So there's so much on this pasuk that we could just do this pasuk as as a whole shir. Beginning with the words of Mordechai Yada, Mordechai knew, and the Mepharshim immediately tell us that he got this knowledge through a dream. He didn't have face-to-face prophecy because he was sad, and Hashem does not come to in prophecy. He doesn't come to anybody when they're sad. So he had this dream, and in his dream, the Medrash tells us that he saw Eliyahu Hanavi, and Eliyahu Hanavi came to him and said to him that Eliyahu Hanavi had gone to Moshe Rabbeinu and told Moshe Rabbeinu that the Jews were in trouble and at risk of being annihilated, and that Moshe must wake up from his grave and come save the Jews. And Moshe said to him, "Is there not a tzaddik who is alive right now who could save the Jews?" And he said, "Yes, there is. There's Mordechai, but I don't know if he will do this, if he has to do it." And Moshe Rabbeinu said to Eliyahu Navi, "Go and tell him that this is his mission. He needs to take care of saving the Jews, and that I, Moshe Rabbeinu, will help him with it." So that's when Eliyahu Navi came and woke up Mordechai. Mordechai wasn't sure what to do. So he went out into the streets, and the very famous medrash that you've all probably come across at some stage, Mordechai saw the children coming home from school, and he went over to each group of children and he said to the first group, what did you learn at school today? And the children told him the pasuk, Al tira mi pachat pisam, don't be afraid of a sudden fear. And don't be afraid of the plans of Rashaim when they come. So he felt like, sure, that's hashgacha pratis. That's what the children learned today, and they're telling me. And so he stood there, and the next group of children came by, and he said to them, "What did you learn in school today?" And they said, "Utsu eitza v'sufar." They can make plans, but they'll come to nothing. Dabru davar v'lo yakum. They'll say things that will never happen. Ki imanu kel, because Hashem is with us. And so now this heaviness is lifting off Mordechai's shoulders, and he asks the third group, "What did you learn in school today?" And they said, "We learned Vadzikna Anihu, that Hashem says, um, even when I get old, I'm Him, I'm still Hashem. Vatseva Ani Espol, and forever, okay, until I'm really old, I'll sustain you." And so now Mordechai is feeling completely, this is a message, and he's feeling lighter and better. What he didn't know was that Haman was watching this whole exchange, and Haman got very angry. He asked someone on the side, what was that discussion all about? And when he heard what the children had told Mordechai, he got really angry, and he said, "The children will be first, and then you, Mordechai, will follow." When Mordechai realized Mordechai Yada, he suddenly realized what happened. He tore his clothes, and he put on sackcloth and ashes, and he went through the streets, crying out in this deep cry. So the Mephoshim ask, what is this concept of tearing clothes? So we know straight away that tearing clothes is a sign of mourning. And the commentaries explain to us that the reason that tearing clothes is a sign of mourning is because just as a garment that's torn can never be the same again, so what's just happened changes life. It can never be the same again. So even though, it's like nowadays, after someone says Shiva Rahman Islam, they chuck out the shirt or the suit or whatever it is. They don't try to fix it. But in olden days, each item of clothing was made especially, and there weren't shops to go and buy. So people would fix their clothes after they finished sitting Shiva or wearing clothes of mourning. But something that had been torn, even with the best seamstress, the best tailor, can never be exactly the same as it was again. And the message very much is that after a person has sat Shiva, Rahman Islam, life can never be exactly the same. We can carry on, we can fix it, we can smile again, we can try and live our normal life again, and we can even have happy times, but something changed. There's something different, and something has changed. And this is what Mordechai is saying by tearing his clothes. He's saying, now whatever happens to the Yidden, life can never be the same again. Either they're going to be annihilated absolutely and completely, or they're going to do tshuva absolutely and completely. But life as we know it now in Shushan can never be the same. It's not possible. Why do you put sackcloth? Sackcloth is a sign of humility. Sackcloth is used for holding cheap things, so like potatoes, right? It's not like you don't put your jewelry and your diamonds in a sackcloth. It's cheap things, and so putting on sackcloth is a sign of humility, and the ashes to invoke the merit of Avraham and Yitzchak. So Avraham was in a furnace for the sake of Hashem. Yitzchak was prepared to be sacrificed for the sake of Hashem. And so Hashem, when you're looking at the Yidden now, and they are facing annihilation, they're facing horror of horrors, they're facing a Haman, remember Avraham and Yitzchak. Remember how they were prepared to give up themselves completely for you. Also, the ashes remind us that we are mortal human beings. We like to think that we are in control, we will live forever, we can do what we want, and that's what had happened to the Jews of Shushan. And by Mordechai putting ashes on himself, he was saying to everyone, You remember that we're here for a limited time, and you remember that Hashem is in charge, and you remember all of that. That also brings a person to do teshuvah. And what is this concept of walking through the city and crying out a za'aka gedela umara, a cry, a bitter and deep cry? So another place in the Torah where these words are used is when it speaks about when it speaks about Esav finding out that his brother had stolen the brachas from him. So he comes into the room, and as just before he walks into the room where his father is, his brother Yaakov walks out, and Yitzchak realizes whatever. Everybody realizes what happened, and the words that the Torah uses is that he cried za'aka gedola, big, deep inside cry. We may not cause somebody else to cry like that. And so, as a tikkun, as a fixing up of the fact that Yaakov caused Esav to cry that deep cry, some Jew somewhere had to cry that deep cry with that kind of pain. And so this was when Mordechai cries now, he is doing a tikkun, he's fixing up for the pain that Esav was caused when Yaakov stole the brachas. That's at one level. Another level, completely, this kind of cry is one that causes people to do teshuvah. So you might know that in some cultures they actually hire people to come and wail at funerals. What is that about? Because when ordinary people see someone else cry, we can't help but be moved. And when we hear a deep cry, then we get moved very, very deeply. My husband has told me many times that once in his early years of being a rabbi, or it was probably the first time in his years of being a rabbi, that he had to go and tell a woman that her husband had died, just dropped dead. And the screams that she produced as soon as she heard what happened, he still hears them till today, probably 30, 40 years later. We can't help but be moved by somebody's deep, deep cries. This is Za'aka Gedola, this deep cry in the word Za'aka Gedola Umara, this bitter cry. And what happens to us when we hear a deep, bitter cry like that, it causes something to happen inside of us that would likely make us do teshuvah. And this is what Mordechai is hoping for. He's walking around the city of Shushan, and he is crying this deep and bitter cry, hoping that the Yidden are going to be affected by the sound that they're hearing. And he calls for people to come and see what's wrong. Everybody, come and see what's going on. Come see why I'm crying. And when the people come nearer, he asks them. He says, "Please follow the example of the people of Nineveh and do teshuvah. They were supposed to be wiped out." And Hashem forgave them because of their tshuva. What does he do as he's walking through Shushan? Vayavo ad livnei shar hamelech, and he comes up until just before the gate of the king. Ki ein lavay el shar hamelech bilvush sak, because you cannot come into past the gates of the king if you're wearing sackcloth. So take notice of the word ad. He came up until the gates of the king. There is a prohibition for anybody to come into the king's grounds, into the palace grounds, wearing sackcloth. Apparently, that's a bad omen on the life of the king. And so Mordechai, standing there in his sackcloth, cannot go further than the gates of the king. Right at the beginning, when we started learning the Megillah, I pointed out to you that whenever it says Hamelech, and it doesn't say Hamelech HaChashverosh, it's also talking about Hashem. And here immediately the commentaries tell us that this is a line that's for all of us. It says, we have to come ad lifnei shar Hamelech, until the gates of the king. Ki ein lavai el shar Hamelech, because we cannot come into the gates of the king, bilvush sak. And the commentaries explain to us that we cannot grow in our Torah, Yiddishkeit, human mental, whatever, the things that we're supposed to be doing at a ruchnius level, our spiritual growth, when we're sad, when we are in mourning. And if a person wants to accomplish things Jewishly, connecting to Hashem, we have to take off our levush sak, our clothes of sadness, and that's the only way that we can affect this world. That because our job is to bring joy into this world. V'chol medina medina, and in every province, every place that the words of the king and his law reached. Avel Gadol Yehudim, there was great mourning among the Jews, v'tzaim and fasting, uvechi and crying, umisped and weeping, sakva efer yutzak l'rabim, and sackcloth and ashes was there, came out for the masses. The Medrash on Esther says that one of the strange things about this grief was that normally grief is strongest when something happens, and then the way that Hashem created the world, the way that He made the world work, is that grief gets better. It doesn't go away ever, but people can manage to live. People can manage to be happy again. It gets easier and easier as the days go by. And here, what was happening is that the grief that the Yidden were feeling was getting worse and worse and worse. And that's the reason that the Megillah writes it in this way of listing 6 different ways that the Jews were crying, mourning, fasting, all the different ways that they were feeling this terrible grief. And I pointed out to you now that there were 6 different ways, right? As it says in the pasuk, same. I lost my place. Avel, okay. Avel Gadol, Tzaim, Bechi, Misbad, Sakva, Efer, these 6 different ways of them feeling this terrible grief because of the 6 days that they spent at Achashverosh's party. But Tavana Nares Esther and the Esther's girls came, the Sariseah and officers, the Agidullah, and they told her what was going on. Vatis chal hamalka ma'id, and the queen began to shake very much. Vatishlach begadim lehalbishes Mordechai, and she sent clothes to dress Mordechai, lahasir sakai ma'alav, and to him to remove the sackcloth from on him. V'leikibel, but he didn't accept them. So the commentaries tell us, and I think we discussed this slightly before, that Mordechai and Esther continued to live together as husband and wife during the time that she was in the palace. And actually, Esther was pregnant when she saw Mordechai in this state of being. Vatis chalchal. Most of the commentaries tell us that she miscarried, and this, for me, makes the story even sadder because this was her last chance at having a child with Mordechai, and she miscarried. She sends Mordechai a message that he must come. He has clothes, change to good clothes, and come back to me. And Mordechai says no. He refuses. Vatikra Esther Hassach, and Esther called to Hassach. By tradition, Hassach is Daniel, who had been a big an important person. He was in the Sanhedrin, and then he was on the cabinet, and then Achashverosh wasn't so sure if he liked him or not, and so he turned Hassach into a lady in waiting, put him at the queen's disposal, and whatever the queen wants from you, you've got to do, which actually suited Esther and Mordechai because now they had Hassach there, and he wasn't going to tell on them. So he was Misarise HaMelech, he was one of the officers of the king, Asher He'emid Lefanea, that was put before her, but Tetzavehu al Mordechai, and she told him to tell Mordechai, Ladas, she wants to know, Mazeh ve'al Mazeh, what is this, and what is this about? Very strange wording that she sends Hassach with. She says, go and find out why he's walking around in these clothes of mourning. And she says, Mazeh, what is this? Va'al Mazeh, and what is this on account of what's happening? And the Malbim immediately says, It's not good enough to know just what's wrong, but we have to know why it's wrong. And this is, in the Malbim's words, like a skilled physician. If you go to a doctor, he mustn't just be able to tell you what the symptoms are. That we can do for ourselves. We must go and find out why. Why are you having these symptoms? What is actually happening? And what she was asking, mazeh v'al mazeh, what is this? And what is this because of? And she dafka uses the word zeh, or the Megillah dafka uses the word zeh, because there's two times where zeh is used in the observance of like connecting to Hashem. First of all, most famously, is when we crossed the Yam Suf, and it says everybody could see Hashem's greatness. Even it says even the children could point and say, look at Hashem, right? And they all said the famous words which we say in our davening, Zeh Keli Van Veil. This is God, and I'm, wow. And so she's saying, what's happened to the Jews? Have they stopped seeing God? Is that what's going on? And the other time that the word zeh is used, when it talks about the luches, and we know that the luches were written, they were on both sides. It says mizeh umizeh, that you could see them on this side and you could see them on that side. So that's her second question to Mordechai. Is the trouble that's happening because the Jews are not keeping the Torah? They're not interested in the Aseret Dibros anymore? Is that the reason? So this is her question to Mordechai. How is such a thing happening, that a genocide is being planned against the Jewish people? They must have been doing something to deserve it. Is it because they've stopped seeing God in their lives? Is it because they've stopped having Torah in their lives? Vayetze Hasach el Mordechai, and Hasach went out to Mordechai el Rechav to the streets of the city, Asher Lifnei Shar HaMelech, which were um, by the gates of the king. But Yaged lo Mordechai es Asher Karou, and Mordechai told him everything that had happened, as Prashas HaKesef, and about the money that was offered, that bribe, Asher Amar Haman Lishkol al Gin Zei HaMelech by Yehudim, which Haman had offered to weigh and to give in exchange for the Jews, La'abdom, to destroy them. Ves Pasheken Ksav Hadas Asher Nisan B'Shushan, and about the laws that were written in the people of Shushan, Hashmidom, to destroy them. Nasan Loi Laharais, as Esther, he gave it to him, to Hasach, to show Esther, Ulahagidla, and to tell her, Ulatzaves Aleha, and to command her, Lavail HaMelech, to go to the king, Lehischanein Loi, and to plead with him, Ulavakesh Milfanav al Amor, and to and she should plead before the king for her people. Um, so now he's asking Hasach is asking Esther to daven on Mordechai telling. Vayavay Hasach vayaged Esther es divrei Mordechai, and Hasach came and told Esther everything that Mordechai said. Vatamer Esther lahasach, and so Esther says to Hasach, Vatasavel al Mordechai, and commands him to go back to Mordechai, and with the following message: Kol avdei hamelech, all the servants of the king, v'am medinas hamelech, and all the people in the provinces of the king, yodim, they know, asher kol ish ve'isha, that any man or woman, asher yava el hamelech, who comes to the king, el hechatzer hapnimis, to the inner sanctum, asher loy yikare, who hasn't been called, Achas Dase, there's one law. Lahamis, to kill him. Levad ma'asher yoshit lehamelech, unless someone who the king puts out his scepter, as Shavis Hazav, his golden scepter, v'chayo, then he can live. Va'ani loini kresi lavayel hamelech, and I haven't been called to come to the king, zeh shloshim yom, for already 30 days. So if you remember right at the beginning when Vashti is on trial, this law was put into practice that no one could come to the king without being called. This was to make sure that Vashti didn't come and plead for her life. And now Esther says there's no way that I can go there. She does say that it's already 30 days that he hasn't called me. So it's not like I'm procrastinating forever. I know I'll be called any day. I will be just be patient. Vayigidu to Mordechai, and so they told it to Mordechai. So now take notice that it's and they told it to Mordechai as Divrei Esther, the words of Esther. Hassach's name is no longer used here because the Medrash tells us that Haman was very suspicious of the relationship between Hassach and Esther and Mordechai, and had Hassach killed at this point. Vayomer Mordechai lahashiv el Esther, and Mordechai responds to Esther, says to tell Esther, Al tadami benafshech, don't try and flee with your life. Lehimalet beis hamelech mikol haYehudim, to flee to the palace from all the Jews. Ki im hecharesh charishu be'es hazais, if you're quiet at this time, revach v'hatzala ya'amad leYehudim, um, peace and being saved will come, victory will come to the Jews from another place. And you and your father's household will perish. And who knows, that because of this moment you came to be being queen. This is probably one of the most powerful psukim. Mordechai says to Esther, don't try and escape this. Don't procrastinate. Don't try and escape this. Go to the king. Now realize what Esther stands to lose, and also what Mordechai stands to lose. So Esther, she's going to risk her life by going to the king, but more than risking her life, up until now, and I think for me this is the main point of the whole story of the Megillah. Up until now, Esther was never a willing wife to Achashverosh. The only time that she was ever with Achashverosh is when he called her, and therefore she had the halacha of a anusa, a raped woman. This moment that she would go to the king and offer herself to him and daven for the Jews, that would be the first time that she would willingly go to King Ahasuerus, and she would no longer be considered an anusa, a raped woman. She would now be considered an adulteress. The moment she's considered an adulteress, she is no longer permitted to Mordechai. And so her hope is that one day things will come right, and she and Mordechai will be able to live together again as husband and wife, and this nightmare will come to its end. But now she's going to spoil everything, and she's going to spoil it all by going to King Ahasuerus. And we always say she is the heroine. She really is, because she was prepared to give up her life. But Mordechai also is doing something huge over here. He's also giving up Esther. For the sake of the Yidden. Similar idea to Moshe Rabbeinu, who says, "Wipe me from your books. If you're gonna wipe out Jews, wipe me from your books." And this is what a Jewish leader does. This is what a Jewish leader does, whatever. Mordechai also says another strong thing to her. We all know that we come into this world with a mission. None of us know what our mission is. People have this thought that, someone who does their mission and then they don't have to live anymore. It's not quite like that, because otherwise none of us would want to do our missions. We would be quite afraid of accomplishing what we're supposed to do in this world. We want to rather live a long life. So we have two things that we have to do in this world. We actually have to refine our neshama, which that we can do until we're 120 and more. And we also have to fulfill our mission, make up for the mistakes of the previous generations, as well as the mistakes or the things that our neshama, the taints that our neshama has on it. And so Mordechai tells her, and so clearly, nobody gets to hear things like this. Maybe this is your mission. Maybe this is what you need to be doing. Maybe this is the reason you became queen. Maybe this is the reason you were born. Maybe this is why you're alive now, so that you can save the Jewish people. Very powerful. Whenever they read it in the Megillah, I always think, sure, can you imagine if we knew what our missions were? Maybe this is my mission. This is what I need to be doing. And he also gives her almost a promise. One of the things that you need to do is to fix up for the generations before you. And maybe that's your job, to fix up for your father's mistake. And he also shows the most unbelievable trust in Hashem. He says, don't become pompous about this, because I know I know the Jews are going to be okay. I know Hashem is going to take care of the Yidden and they won't be wiped out. But it might come through mimakom acher, from another place. And we have to know that our mission and everything that we need to do, it can happen through somebody else. But we've got to grab the opportunities to do what we need to do to make this world into a better place. And so Esther says, Tomer Esther lahashiv el Mordechai. Esther says to go and answer Mordechai. Lech knesses kol Yehudim hanimtzaim b'Shushan. Go and gather all the Jews who are found in Shushan. She wanted to make up for the fact that this nation was so ununified. She says, go unify them. Knesses haYehudim. Gather them together. V'tzumu alai. Fast for me. And interesting, we always look at it as and fast, okay, and fasting. But she was asking specifically to fast for her. She said, I've done huge sins and I'm about to do even bigger sins. And so I wanted to fast for me, for the sins that I'm about to do. Don't eat or drink for 3 days. Laila v'yom. Day and night, gamaniva naresai atzum, and also me and my girls will also fast. So she feels that there's huge averas happening over here, and the Yidden must fast for her, like a pre-tshuva, if we could call it that. Fast for her. So she feels that there's 3 things, and that's why she chooses also, from some opinions, 3 days of fasting. She wants to do tshuva for having gotten Hasach killed. She wants to she wants to do tshuva for going into the palace and violating Yom Tov, because these 3 days is going to be Pesach, and she's likely going to eat chametz. Whatever it is, this is not going to be a beautiful, happy Pesach. And in fact, the Medrash tells us that she and Mordechai had this discussion. Mordechai says, "Can we fast? Can I tell the Jews that they're going to fast on Pesach?" And she says to Mordechai, if the Jews fast, they won't have this Pesach. If they don't fast, they won't have any more Pesachs. And so she tells Mordechai that yes, they must fast. And she also she wants tshuva for the fact that she's going to give her body to King Achashverosh. For 3 days, they're going to ask, and this is the way I'll come before the king. Asher loichadas, not according to law, but ka'asher avadati. And that which if I perish, I perish. And for me, those are the strongest words in the Megillah. Kasher avadati. If I perish, I perish. That's strong enough, just in simple. But if we look at it one step deeper than that, what she's saying, so avad is to lose, and she says ka'asher avadati, that which I'm about to lose, giving myself over to King Achashverosh and becoming an adulteress, I'm going to lose Mordechai. And she says ka'asher avadati, that which I'm about to lose, avadati, I'm prepared to lose it. I will lose it in order to save the Yidden. And actually, if you're listening to the person who is reading the Megillah, they change to the Megillah's Eicha tune for this, and they say, "V'ka'asher avadati, avadati," and that which I'm about to lose, I'm about to lose. The absolute saddest words of the whole Megillah. Vayavar Mordechai, and Mordechai went vayasas kol asher tzivsa alav Esther, and he did everything that Esther commanded him. These words vaya'avar Mordechai, he went by. Also from the word avera, he agreed to do the avera, which we call it an avera lishma, an avera for the sake of heaven, to tell the Jews that they had to fast this year on Pesach. And that finishes Perek Dalad. End of the shift for today.
Thank you, Rivki.
Thank you.
I hope your city comes back quickly.
Yeah, me
Thank
too.
you, Rivki.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rivki.
Thank you.
As I say, hope the
Bye.
electricity comes back quickly, and
Thank you.
wish you long life.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Take care.
And we'll see. So we'll speak in the week.
Areches Yomi.